Hi guys, welcome back to The Social Tune, and today we're going to take a look at the latest album by Thundercat called Drunk.
Nobody move, there's blood on the floor, and I can't find my heart. Where did it go? Did I leave it in the cold? So please give it back, 'cause it's not yours to take.
You know, it's strange to think that even when you think you have a pretty vast knowledge of music as a whole, you still come across artists with much larger discographies than you'd otherwise expect. And yeah, compared to some other artists, Thundercat's is pretty minor, but considering most of you probably know him from his work with Kendrick Lamar or Childish Gambino, you might be surprised how critically acclaimed he is behind the scenes, not just as a producer, but as a solo artist. And really, that shouldn't surprise me as much as it does. After all, he was featured on two of the best tracks on To Pimp a Butterfly, namely the opening track Wesley's Theory and the absolutely breathtaking song These Walls, which, if I didn't have my 3 songs per album limit, would have easily made my top 50 songs of 2015. It's an amazing track. And that's not even counting his production credits on that album and Untitled Unmastered last year. And yet I'll be blunt, his solo work so far has never really grabbed me. Not that it's bad, he's definitely playing with a sound that I love, but for the most part it doesn't really feel substantial enough to me. Still, this album was getting great reviews, so I decided to check it out to see what I thought. And boy, do I wish that I liked this a lot more than I do. It's well produced and the concept is interesting, but every time I listened through it, it just left me disappointed. And I think I know why. And one aspect to definitely point out is the production.
I'm your biggest fan, but I guess that's just not good enough. Is it 'cause I wear my hair weird, or because I like to play Diablo?
Okay, from the opening track Rabbit Hole, you instantly see why so many people love Thundercat. The title is definitely funny and the track itself is beautifully produced. And that's the same theme that runs through pretty much all of these tracks. The fast-paced shimmering beat on Captain Stupido, the shimmering atmospherics and compressed piano line that break through into a fast-paced jazz-inspired beat on the warping beat and subtle drums on a Fans Male Tron song Sweet 2 that wouldn't have sounded out of place on To Pimp a Butterfly, and of course the great sweeping production and the general laid-back vibe on the lead-off single Show You the Way is great. Definitely a highlight on this album. Honestly, there were very few parts that I didn't like instrumentally, like the awkward blend of sounds on Lava Lamp, where the random noises thrown in didn't really fit the rest of the sweeping production. Also, the beat on Jeffro was a bit atonal, not to mention the strange whirring noise that came through on that song, which didn't really fit the instrumentation. It didn't really feel smooth enough. Or the weird tapping beat that opened up Walk On By, which then persisted across the entire track and just kind of annoyed me. My main issue with this project is that it's 23 tracks long and most of these songs don't even reach the 2-minute mark. And yet, it's still over 50 minutes long. And I'm sorry, not only was I bored listening through the majority of this album, but with rare exception, most of these songs sounded completely inessential to me, either because of cheap production or because they were too damn short. The strange thing is that a lot of these beats actually sound very cheap, which may be the point, but they do not flatter songs like Black Kaka or Jamil's Space Ride. And I'm sorry, surprisingly, Thundercat isn't helping.
At the end of it all, no one wants to drink alone. Baby, that's how it goes. Don't walk away from me.
See, on paper, I should love this guy. He's a decent singer who regularly references anime and nerd culture. But honestly, most of the time on this album, he just annoyed me. He was solid across the album, but there were no moments where he truly impressed me. And on many occasions, he just felt like a non-presence. And unfortunately, for the most part, our guests aren't much better. Kendrick delivers an okay verse on Walk On By, but nowhere near his best, and he barely elicited a reaction from me. And Wiz Khalifa takes a boring song and makes it even worse by just making it yet another drug anthem. Luckily, Pharrell's verse on The Turn Down is fantastic, easily one of his most political verses in a while. And yes, both McDonald and Kennedy Loggins do a great job on Show You The Way. Now again, the production did cover this up most of the time, meaning I could definitely see myself playing this album in the background as just easy listening music. But in all honesty, I'm much more likely to just play To Pimp a Butterfly in the background instead. And of course, it's worth noting that Thundercat is trying to make a point with this album, which brings us to the lyrics. Okay, so here we have to start comparing this album to another project, which may seem unfair, but I'm sorry, it's what I naturally end up doing. And that album is Danny Brown's Atrocity Exhibition. Now that album was one of the best of last year, diving into drug and alcohol abuse graphically and gloriously, portraying it in an extremely unflattering and scary manner. On this album, Thundercat seems to want to do something similar, as this album is basically a snapshot of his drunken meanderings through life, eventually leading to his own destruction. But unfortunately, while Danny wrote detailed, harrowing tales of madness, Thundercat seems to want to make this more comedic and abstract. Like on Tokyo and Friend Zone, where he's yelling at these girls that he's going to keep playing his video games and keep watching his anime. And look, more power to him, but as a genuine geek myself, I honestly found a lot of this either dull, unfunny, or outright annoying. It struck me as a guy who's trying way too hard, and that's always an instant turn-off for me when it comes to music. And yet he still tries to make the come down and the final realization that he's heading for trouble tragic. Which I'm sorry, he can't pull off. He's not Father John Misty, who can at least make his misery sound entertaining and funny. On songs like 3 AM, he tries to set up that he's starting to feel bad, and then he tries to make Inferno this album's downward spiral, which I'm sorry, just doesn't work. The tonal whiplash is just too great. So yeah, this is a messy, incoherent album that I can't say I enjoyed. In a way, it kind of reminds me of BJ the Chicago Kid's album last year. I think I just prefer him as a featured artist. And even then, that album was better and more cohesive than this. If you like it, great, but outside of 1 or 2 songs, I can't see myself returning to this. For me, it's a very light 6 out of 10, and while I still have plenty of faith in Thundercat as a producer, I can't see myself returning to his solo work again anytime soon. So thank you guys for watching. If there are any other albums coming out in the next month or so, please post them in the comments or tweet them at me so I can listen to them and possibly review them. You'll find a link to my Twitter in the description. Feel free to follow me if you'd like. Please subscribe so you don't miss a thing, and until the next time, I'm Finn, and this is The Social Tunes, signing off.